Hello and welcome back to Sports Gene's mini-series, The Umpire's Call. Last episode, we had talked about how the decision-making of the umpire varies from format to format. Today, we'll be adding one more variable into the equation, which is technology. We'll be discussing how DRS has evolved over the period of time. I have with me Vivek, cricket umpire from Melbourne, Australia, to discuss about this. Despite DRS being used for the first time in 2008, it was optional for teams to choose whether they wanted to have DRS in the series or not. It faced a lot of criticism in the initial years, and it was not until recently that DRS has been widely used across all formats. Vivek, can you tell me how this DRS has evolved over the period of time to become more foolproof?
The decision review system has been a talking point since its adoption in 2008. And at any given point in time, there's always been discussion surrounding the decision review system. Now, let me go back to the basics, and I would start off by saying the purpose of the decision review system is to assist umpires in overturning decisions that are perceived as incorrect, right? So the system itself revolves around three components. I would say people, technology, and the process. So all these three components, people, process, technology, should be working in synchronized fashion for the overall system to be successful. So when I say people, I talk about the third umpires who use the technology. So they have to be skilled and they have to be knowing how to use the technology, and they play an important part in making the system work. So when the DRS first started, the issue that I found was that there was not enough transparency with regard to the communication between the third umpire and the on-field umpire. So usually the on-field umpire would signal to the third umpire, and third umpire would then, there's some sort of communication going on between the third umpire and the on-field umpire. And more often than not, the third umpire would probably make a decision based on what the on-field umpires decide. In other words, the on-field decisions more often than not would stay as the final decision. So this actually caused an issue among a lot of the captains, including the recently retired legendary Indian captain once said it was called the Umpires Justification System. And this was probably one of the reasons why the BCCI was reluctant to use this technology at the time of its inception. Now, when we move to the second element, the processes surrounding the DRS, it's more about the protocols, the number of reviews a captain can have, and the umpire's call, the margin of the umpire's call. For example, when it first started, we had more than 50% of the ball must be hitting the stumps, otherwise a review is lost. Now, why would you want to have more than 50% of the ball hitting the stump when it is enough, even if a small part of the ball, as long as the ball is hitting the stump, it's still bowled. You don't need to have 50% of the ball hitting the stumps. That was the argument that was raised by many cricketing experts. And the reason for the process is when it said 50% of the ball must be hitting the stumps could be because the technology was not perceived to be accurate enough to be, or the makers of the technology were not confident enough to say, yes, the ball is likely to hit the stumps unless 50% of the ball or less is hitting the stumps. These were some issues I felt we had with the technology when it first started. Talking about the process, in the Cricket World Cup 2011, we had a scenario, call it the 2.5 meter rule. It was a game between India and England, the league stage, which ended in a tie. And Ian Bell, who was a batsman at the time, was given not out on field. But when India reviewed the decision and went back to the technology upstairs, the DRS said that the ball was actually going on to hit the stumps. But unbelievably, the batsman was given not out. And the reason was Ian Bell seemed to be over 2.5 meters outside the crease. So this process at the time allowed a batsman to get away if he was batting 2.5 meters outside the crease. And this was because the technology's accuracy reduced by less than 90%. So all these suggest that the technology was not 100% foolproof, and there was glitches surrounding the technology. But as years progressed, the processes changed, technology changed, and we had this margin of the umpire's call being reduced. So as long as the ball was hitting the stumps or even the top of the bail, this was still the umpire's call. This is again is attributed to the technology, because now the technology is becoming more robust, that the makers of the technology are confident that it's more accurate. And even if the ball's like hitting the top of the stumps, we are still happy with that system. So the margin of umpire's call has reduced in the recent years, which is a good sign. The other transparency I thought evolved was with regard to the people's component of this technology, where now the third umpires communicate with the on-field umpires, and we can hear the communication. And from a technological point of view, we also have the hotspot and SNCO working in conjunction to support the technology. So these are some of the developments with regard to the decision review system. And I would say when you have the three components, people, process, technology, working in a synchronized way, the outcome of the DRS is far better.
So Vivek, from a personal point of view, what changes would you like to see in the DRS system?
As I explained, the three components, people, process, and technology, I'll sort of saying, like, from the people's perspective, I think in the right space, because the third umpires are doing a fantastic job in and communication between the third umpires and on-field umpires is transparent. So I don't have any issues at the moment as far as the people component goes, except that there could be some changes with the process, which again involves people, and it's also interlinked. So when I say there could be some changes with the process is, so now the ICC is now giving the responsibility of judging no balls to the third umpire. So every ball, pretty much the third umpire is going to be busy looking for the no ball. And the technology is now so advanced that it all happens so quickly. As soon as the bowler bowls, or as soon as the ball is dead, we are going to get a immediate response from third umpire, who's going to say that it's a no ball. But this process could extend to scenarios where you have incorrect decisions happening on the field of play, and players or the umpires are not aware of this. So this is where the third umpire, the fourth umpire, the match referee could be a little bit more vigilant in communicating to the on-field umpires and correcting any incorrect or any decisions that has been overlooked. The one decision that comes to my mind is the overthrows that happened in the World Cup 2019 when the ball hit Stokes and went to the boundary, and 6 runs was awarded to England instead of 5. So there could be some tweak in the process or the protocols with regard to the DRS. And as far as the caught behind decisions go, I would like to see hotspot being used in conjunction with SNCO, because sometimes in some matches, due to the cost, we are having this one technology being used, and the problem with just using SNCO, for example, is that we're not quite sure where the noise is coming from, whether the ball hitting the bat or the bat hitting the pad, or sometimes the noise, the SNCO, the spikes could be from the shoes. So we never know. So it's always good to be using two technology in conjunction, so we know for sure the balls hit the bat, or whether there's been an inside edge of the bat onto the pad. And from an LBW point of view, I'm still not convinced with the technicalities of the decision. When I say the technicalities, the first point of contact of the ball on the pad or the person of the batsman should be taken into consideration when projecting the perceived path of the ball. So the first point of contact. So I had a feeling that there was in a game between Australia and England recently, Mitchell Marsh bowled a delivery to Bairstow, and he got him out LBW according to the DRS. But when you look at the replays, there was 2 point of contacts. One was the ball hitting the front pad and going on to hit the back pad, which was the second point of contact. Now, when we use the DRS technology to review this decision, the projected path from the first point of contact seemed like, following, different trajectory. But when you follow the second point of contact, the ball was actually hitting in the direction of the stumps. But what the DRS does is superimpose the first and the second point of contact. So rather than the ball going like this on the first point of contact, it's been superimposed with the second point of contact, and it's now going like this. So these are some technical issues I'm pretty sure the makers of the technology would figure out. And my personal opinion is I would leave it with umpires and leave it with the humans to decide the projected path. So the DRS is doing a fabulous job of letting us know the point of impact. And then I feel there should be a human element which should decide the projected path rather than allowing the technology to predict the futuristic path of the ball. And the reason I say this is because the question always lingers in my mind as to how would the technology know whether a spin bowler is bowling a doosra or a carom ball, or a straighter one or a top spinner. So I'm convinced that the cameras that are being employed passes on information or data, which then predicts the length and height of the ball off the pitch. But whether the technology is able to predict which way the ball is going to turn, especially if the ball is of like a half volley, whether the ball is like spinning away or hitting direct onto the stumps, I think that's better off left with the third umpire to decide the predicted path of the ball. So these are some of the changes I would like to see in the DRS going forward.
Thank you, Vivek, for those wonderful insights. Guys, we hope that you have enjoyed this video. Kindly stay tuned for the next. Till then, like, share, subscribe to SportsGN and Cricket Arbitrator, and we'll see you in the next video.